Good morning. Welcome to this service of Unity of Burning. This is the day of Pentecost. This is the 50th day. I'll be explaining more about that as we proceed to the service. I'm so glad you're with us. I want you to know also that we have a wonderful social media coordinator, Ms. Bertie Schalker, who let me know that I'm saying things about our donations that aren't right. It is at the top of the page where you could donate and leave comments as well. Look at the top of the page, it's not at the bottom. I've been mistaken about that, and she's very sweet and pointed that out to me. So those of you who give, and I hope you do, please send your gifts to Unity of Bernie, P.O. Box 1973, Bernie, Texas 78006. I'll be repeating that later in the service, and of course you can hit the donate button at the top of your page. In the meantime, come join the family.
Good morning, everyone. As we begin today, as normal, we ask you to please turn off your cell phones, put them away for the remainder of the service so you can enjoy the stuff that's going on. My name is Ann King. We're very glad to have Dana in her neck brace and TiVo with us again. And we're going to start with the song. Please. I've seen before. So we're happy to have all of you here with us today. And inside your bulletin, you're going to find a prayer request form. And if you know of anybody or you yourself might benefit from group prayer, which is very powerful, please fill that out. You're always welcome to fill those out before church and put them in the prayer box, which is under the chalkboard back there. But if you don't, you can drop them into the prayer box as it comes forward. You can even put them in the offertory bag if you've forgotten until later in the service. So, or you can put them in after the service. They're prayed for by our own prayer team for a week. They're sent to Unity of the Village, where they are prayed for by Silent Unity, prayed over by Silent Unity for a month. So, our announcements. Maria wanted me to announce some information about our Unity Honor Library, which is in this next room over here, the Sunshine Room. Maria and Tom have been redoing it to make it a little easier to check out and return books. If you want to check out a book, there's a shelf by the front door in there, and the books all have a little library card in them, and you just put your name on it. There's a place to drop it. And there's also a place there to return your books if you're bringing them back. And at the very bottom, there's a big basket. If you have books you want to donate to our library, you can put them there, and then they'll take care of getting them ready to check out. So So if you have any questions, you can ask somebody, but it's all kind of self-explanatory. We also have added a space for usher on our sign-in sheet. It won't start till July, but I put out another one for June because we don't have ushers for June. And today it was Marlon, and he's not here today, so Jay will have somebody else be usher. But if you want to volunteer to be usher and pass the offering bag once a month, we appreciate it. Helps everybody to be involved. And I do see that on our regular sign-in sheet for worship assistant, daily word reader, opener, etc., in July and August, there is a space on those for usher. So, daily word booklets are still back in the back under the chalkboard, and they are free, so you can take one. The one that's out right now is May and June, and then we'll have some coming up for July and August. And we are always collecting dry goods. The basket is outside the front door, and we pass it on to the various Birdie groups to help those in need. We're going to Belisara today after lunch. I think I've asked everybody. We're going to have a very small group, but if you change your mind and would like to go with us, it's just for more fellowship and conversation. We do have the Sunday book discussion going on every Sunday from 9:30 to 10:30. We're doing radical forgiveness again. We do a little bit of reading and a lot of talking. So if you'd like to join us for that, 9:30 to 10:30. If you're here for the first time and not getting our weekly emails telling you what's coming up and our newsletter, etc., again, there is a sign-in sheet under the blackboard back there, and just put your email address, and I will tell you, if you have HCTC as your server, you're not going to get it. It comes off eye contact, and HCTC will not recognize eye contact as anything but spam. So, let's see. We have a lot of ongoing activities via Zoom. If you look at your order of service, they're all listed in there. This is the last day of the month, so you can take the whole order of service if you want, but normally you can pull out the insert at any time and take that with you. And it does have login information on it, and it does include another radical forgiveness discussion group that is done online, plus Course in Miracles and Pathlighters, and they're all in the evenings. So that is all the announcements I have, and we are going to have our daily word now. And Gully, are you going to read that for us?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As we quietly and gently prepare now for the reading of the daily word, remember that we are in spirit with millions of daily word readers around the world. The Christ candle is lit as a reminder of the Spirit of God within all of us, which we call the Christ within. The word for the day is comfort. Affirmation is loving memories comfort me. There may be days or even weeks on the calendar when I find myself mysteriously feeling melancholy or blue, only to realize the anniversary of someone or something I have loved and lost is approaching. Even when I don't realize it outright, a part of me remembers and responds. I can honor these that have taught me and helped me evolve. Welcoming my feelings bring deep and abiding comfort. I carry those people and places in my heart. I carry those people and places I love with me, and the things I do, keeping their spirit alive. Gradually, I find smiles within the sadness. Revisiting treasured memories reveals the love within the loss. The presence of God is found within the gift of each moment, and I find comfort throughout my grateful heart. This comes from Psalms 119:76. Let your steadfast love become my comfort according to your promise to your servants. affirmation again is loving memories comfort me. My name is Ann Gully, and we thank you for coming to worship with us today.
Thank you, Ann. And I will remind you too that the reading of the daily word is a volunteer job, and if you're ever interested in doing it, please put your name down on one of the sign-in sheets. So stand up now, and we're going to have the miracle moment along with some other stuff. We're going to say together, as soon as Jean changes the slide. There we go. Okay. I celebrate my divine heritage of freedom from all things that seem behind me. I know I am blessed with the gift of choice, and I use it well as I navigate my life, knowing God is with me always. I turn inward and listen to the ever-present voice of love as I make new choices, and so it is. Remain standing. We're going to sing Ever in God's Presence. Say our opening prayer. Unity of burden is a vibrant, loving, spiritual community, providing a sacred space for personal growth. We honor and celebrate Christ within all people. Thank you. Please be seated. I'm going to turn this all over to Reverend Jay right now for our wonderful service.
Thank you, Ed.
Doing good.
Try something a little new this morning. I feel sometimes this gets in my way, so bear with me. Maybe it looks a little strange, but that's nothing new with me. Welcome to the Unity of Bernie. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We believe in prayer, and I've said there is only one kind of prayer, answered prayer. And somebody said, what do you mean by that? Well, the answer is yes or no or wait a while. So if you don't get an answer right away or feel you don't be weary in well-doing. Go ahead and keep planning, keep asking, keep planting the seed of your intention, the joys of your heart, and they'll come to fruition in one way or another, and you'll be led right in this place right here. We believe in prayer, and we've seen the results of it and especially in the past couple of months. It's just been like the energy here has just overflowed. So right now, I would like to give you time to write your prayer requests on paper if you'd like to. If you've already placed them in the box, wonderful. If you prefer not to give utterance, so to speak, either in writing or in voice, remember, Spirit knows the needs of your heart before you give utterance. Your cares, concerns, your joys, your victories, your heartaches. They're all no stranger to the presence within. So now, as Sherry brings the prayer box forward, is there anybody that would like to place a prayer with us?
Tom, it's good.
Sure. Sure. Dearest, loving, infinite presence, we give thanks that you're with us, that before we call, you answer. Turn within, and we receive the answers that we need. The joy of our heart is communion with you. We do that now. We do that by letting go of all limiting ideas about the things that we want, the things that we don't want. We believe that they can leave our lives. We believe that we can be free. We know that the proper goal of prayer, what we really want, is a deep, abiding peace. And what helps bring that? We invoke that right now. We remember who we are. We take joy in who we are. And remember those this morning who are suffering with heartache, sadness, care. We know your presence comes to them as needed. To those who are in victory, celebration, and joy, we know that is your pure presence. We give thanks for that. Our hearts are full of compassion and love for ourselves and for others, just as you love us. Thank you for your promise to never leave or forsake us, and that if we ask anything in your name, it will be done unto us. We give abundant thanks for your will being done right now. And so it is.
Amen.
Even on a bad day. this week. I'm having one of those days. But even on a bad day. In the midst of his children, the Lord said that he would be. It doesn't take very many. It can be just 2 or 3. And I feel that sense of spirit that I've felt no times before. Surely I can say I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power in his grace. There's a holy arch of angel wings, let's see glory in his face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
And now, let's assume the attitude that we bring when we want to commune with the presence inside. Sometimes it's our hands are folded in our lap, or our palms are upraised, but it's a place that we know well. Secret place of the Most High, 91st Psalm says. We visit that right now. We take a couple of deep breaths. We relax. The cares and the concerns and the worries, the defeats, all last week, or may have been throughout your lifetime you carried pain. A lot of people do. At this moment, we bring them forward to the presence that's never left us, to the one who has said if we knew who walked beside us every moment, we could never be fearful or angry again. And in this place that we feel holistically integrated, when we remember ourselves, when we bring the disparate pieces of ourselves back into our memory, back into our awareness, we know we are one, just as we are part of the oneness of the greater body, the union of those of good throughout this world. This time of meditation is not a selfish act. It is raising the collective consciousness not only of ourselves, but of those who are thinking similarly around this world right now. We know there is no space in thought. And in this presence, we take abundantly of the healing for our emotions, for our mind, for our bodies, for memories that hurt. We recognize love is the ground of our being. And that when we feel badly, that's proof that good is available, because we wouldn't walk out of it if we didn't know something better was available to us. And it is. And we lay hold of it right now. Take a few moments in silence to forgive ourselves and other people those things that we may have found against them or ourselves. We also take a moment to forgive ourselves, knowing that we were never blamed. We were never condemned. We were always loved by the presence within us. It was our opinion, our choice. Love stands always ready with arms wide open to all prodigal thoughts and actions and words. It says, come home to the truth of who you are. On this very day, at this very place, we declare a new beginning for ourselves. A remembering. A holistic attitude that brings ourselves together, loving the hurt parts, celebrating the happy parts. We know we are good. We know we are upheld. Most of all, we know we are loved. We emerge from this time of meditation in gratitude, joy, and peace for the wonderful possibilities inherent in us. We embody that which we desire in our thought life right now, and know it is done to us as we believe. And so it is. Amen. As you bring yourself gradually back to the presence, you feel present, you feel refreshed, revitalized, and invigorated.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Some people have said, sometimes you wear this and sometimes you don't, and I'd like to explain a little about that before I get going this morning. This is the first day of Pentecost, and the ecclesiastical color for that is red. And I always enjoyed church colors. At my time in ministry, I was first I think it was 2007, I was an associate pastor. And I remember my stepdaughter, who saw this fringe and how long it is. She was very young, and she said, "Is this one of the days you're going to wear your dress?" and I said, "Does this look like a dress?" And she played with this, And I said, "It just sort of comes that way." But out of the mouths of babes, right? I guess I did it too, according to my parents. But anyway, This is a day that we celebrate the reinvigoration and the new thoughts that came the 50th day after the resurrection of Christ Jesus. Remember, he promised that after he was gone, the Spirit would come upon them. And boy, did it. And we in Unity see things metaphysically. We just don't know of the event. We see it as an event that can happen to us in our lives. In fact, I wrote this down. What was it that her name was Martha Judici, one of our Unity ministers, said about Pentecost was, it's the time, and this was, remember, this was before this saying was popular. It was the time of the fire in the stomach. It was a time that folks remembered the power that came on them. They had expected it, and they were promised it, and they had affirmed it, but they hadn't seen evidence of it. And then when they were assembled in one place, just like a magic soft explosion, it came upon them. And we've had that in our church here. I've seen us have energy and thoughts and feelings that have just really moved from this church outward. And we felt the difference. We've known what prayer can do. In Pentecost, metaphysically, it means the newness of mind. It means coming out of the bondage of Egypt into liberty. And this is where I want to harken back to Dr. Cady's wonderful book, The Foundation of Unity, Lessons in Truth, where her first chapter in this book asks a question. If you've seen it, it's just 3 words and it has a question mark after it. She opens the book, Bondage or Liberty. And the reason that I associate that with Pentecost is, do we want to be bound to yesterday? Do we want to be bound to the old thoughts, bound to those things that we know don't work? Or do we want the liberty of something new? Are we willing to celebrate our own personal Pentecost? It's wonderful to look back and see the historic idea that came to those people at Pentecost. It's wonderful to celebrate that. But what does it mean in our lives? How do we take that idea and walk with it in newness of life? So many times in churches we have celebratory festivals. We remember the day and we think that was great for them at the time. That was wonderful, but we don't know what it means to us right now. Our job now is to figure out what it means to us. We're in Unity. We are practical people. We believe in practical Christianity. We believe that the things that were written about 2,000 years ago weren't just nice events, weren't just pretty words, but vital things that we can be and do and have right now. If we embody in our thinking the mental equivalent of what we're seeking. We can't rise any higher than we allow ourselves to. So if we want this fire to come upon us, we want the idea of the individuation of God in us. There's some things that we have to give up. We have to give up thinking that we know the best way of how to run our lives. We have to be willing to surrender to the presence that's within us, that's ready to guide us and love us and pick us up and bind us up and heal our wounds and do all the things that are wonderful and marvelous that are promised to us in the spiritual walk. And this morning, as we remember Pentecost, there's some points that I'd like to make personally and then corporately in a larger way. Corporately, of course, meaning the body of all of you and those who are tuning in right now. This is the warp, the woof. This is the sum and substance, Pentecost, of what we are about in New Thought. We believe that when we are open to it, when we seek it, when we affirm it, the presence of God comes into us. Not that it's left us, comes into our awareness. But we have to expect it. We have to believe that it's available. How do we do that? We do that through our study of truth. We know that certain stories in Scripture are there as metaphors and ideas that are not literal, but we can take to change our lives. Obviously, all the parables that Jesus talked about and related were not literally true. They were stories that were meant to point the way to a new life and a new existence. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing my job. If I'm not telling you you can be more than what you've been through, that you can be more than your experience, then I'm not keeping the commitment that I made to myself when I entered ministry. I'd like for you to think a moment about the first time you ever felt discouraged. The first time you remember you ever were disappointed in yourself or someone else. The first time you told yourself a negative story. The first time someone may have said it to you. Hold that thought. I just would like you to bring it to your minds. I'm not going to leave it unhealed. We're going to walk through that, but I'd like you to bring that up in your mind right now. And remember, how did you get used to talking to yourself about that situation, that person, or that event? And what have you told yourself about it? And how have you blocked your own personal Pentecost from occurring? Remember, this is a mental world. It is ruled by thoughts. We like to think bodies do things. Well, I've got news for you. Bodies can't do anything without thoughts that are thinking things. We have the divine thought that keeps us alive. It is what scientists call the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It breathes us. It beats our heart. It adjusts our food. That's the presence of the creative mind. But it's also present inside of our minds, of our brains. It's present to the extent that we recognize it. Some people are sensitively attuned to the voice of spirit, and others say, my prayers can't get farther than the ceiling. And the reason is not because something's being withheld from heaven, some good is being withheld from you. You're withholding it from yourself by the things that you can't or won't release. You have to have a new idea about yourself. And to those of you who are watching online, welcome to Unity. Welcome to a day in the life of our church or our denomination that is so exciting because it speaks to the idea of new invigoration, reinvigoration, revitalization. Remember when I asked you to bring up the thought, the first time that you spoke to yourself in a negative voice, the first time that you were disappointed in you, the first time you remember feeling that feeling in the stomach that says it's almost like shame or it feels uncomfortable, it's something you don't want. You can heal that this morning. You can place the loving that you have and the understanding that you have gained through your spiritual walk. And if you haven't this morning, if you're new to it, you're able to do it by simple change of your mind. You change your thoughts and you literally change your life. But it has to begin somewhere. Let your own personal Pentecost happen to you. Let the harvest of the Spirit be inside you right now. You know, I looked back in my own life and I remembered things that I told myself. I didn't particularly say bad things to myself, but I would say discouraging things. I remember that I started out at 18 years old, of all things, deciding I wanted to sell real estate as I went through college. And nobody thought I'd get through it. And I did pass that test, and then nobody thought I'd be hired. And I finally found a grizzled, frazzled old guy that took a chance on me. 18 and a half years old. He said, if you want to go out there and knock yourself out, here's your book, here's your pad, go out and do it. And I did it, and it took a while, but I kept telling myself over and over again I could do it. But I was also telling myself things about my personal life that were at odds with what I was doing professionally. Besides that, I was 18 years old. What did I know? I had a mishmash of results until one day I sat down and realized that it really is true. I become what I think about no matter the age. And I had a few conversations with some folks. I had a come to Jesus meeting with myself. and I've had a few of those since then. I wanted to know how to do what I was already supposedly qualified, state of Texas said I was qualified to do. I realized I was very young, and very few people would be willing to place their assets in the hands of an 18-year-old. I know I wouldn't. A lot of that time was spent learning. And I spent a couple of years, 3 years, and every time after I would affirm these things, I would go after business like, you know, guy with a jar of tartar sauce going after Moby Dick. I believed that I was going to do it. I believed this was going to be the day, this was going to be the time, and I'd fall flat. But one day, it started to change. When I was 20 years old, I spent basically 2 years probably working for very little. And then when I was 20, that began to happen. And 21, it got better. The long story, as short as it could be, that wonderful, grizzled, frazzled old guy, his name was J.W. Reeser, asked me to be the sales manager of his second office, Sedge 21, Reeser Strong Realtors out on Nacogdoches Road. I was the youngest sales manager they had. And I realized at that time, your thoughts do make you. I was into the very much into the self-help part of things, not knowing that that emanated from our new thought. That was yet to come. I had not found that daily word in the laundromat yet that I told you about. That came a few years later. But I kept believing. I told myself things over and over again, especially if I looked in the mirror and I wrote them down, that it would happen. And doggone it, it did. 23. I got a lot of things that I wanted. It wasn't what I ultimately wanted, but it came to fruition. You've got to stick with it. You've got to change your mind and be willing to keep it changed. You can't go back and take a dip out of the past and remember that negative thing because it's an anniversary or it's somebody's told you about something that reminds you of it. You've got to leave it in the past. The people in Jesus' time, or in the time, the 50th day after the resurrection, they were new to this. This was something that they were awaiting a promise. This had never happened before. And they thought that the Spirit wasn't going to come. It hadn't happened so far. And then all of a sudden, people began waking up next to one another. And that's how a movement of consciousness that's positive works. We begin to learn from one another. That's what the true Christian witness is about. Not the words that I tell you, not something that's going to save your soul from an angry God, something that's going to help you walk forward into the new life that's promised you. If we do that, we are embodying the spirit of Pentecost. We are embodying what Dr. Cady talked about in Lessons of Truth when she said, do you want to stay in Egypt? Or do you want to go to the land overflowing with milk and honey? It all begins with a thought. Earl Nightingale said, you become what you think about. 18th century Dr. Cady in her high-top shoes and all the things we associate with Victorianism, and the businessman Earl Nightingale at WCW Radio talking the same words 50 years apart. They talked the same words because it was true. Napoleon Hill, many of you know, and is revered in our New Thought movement. He wrote the book, Think and Grow Rich. He wrote a lot of bestsellers, but Think and Grow Rich is probably what he's known best for. He was addressing a group of people at the Allied General Insurance Company in Chicago. And his partner in this was, you may have heard this name, W. Clement Stone. Both of them wrote a book together later on called Success Through Positive Mental Attitude. It was really good. But he was addressing these insurance people. And after his address, they were standing up and giving him questions. And one of the persons that questioned him, and this is on a tape from 1953, I loved it. Or was it 55? It was one of those 2 days. One of the men got up and said to him, the circumstances of my life is such that I can't do what you want. I can't do the things you are suggesting that I do. And Hill vehemently interrupted him and used a theological term to describe what he was talking about, circumstances. He looked at the man, he said, circumstance, you have circumstances. Hell, I make circumstances. And all of us do right now. We make circumstances by the thoughts that we hold in our mind. I figured I could use that word after all, it's in the Bible. And it also explains how passionate Hill felt about the idea of personal growth and newness of life. It's not just in the church. When it's healthy and right, it goes all over the place. If we think we're just going to be perfect little Puritans in a church and walk out into a world to save it, we're destined to fail. But if we think we're going to be living, breathing examples of the Christ Spirit that we affirm here, and we walk out and touch people, literally and figuratively, then we help become the authors of a new world. This is powerful stuff I'm talking about. Claude Bristol called it TNT. He wrote a book called The New TNT. It's another one that I recommend. He also wrote The Magic of Believing. All these things were antecedents, or not only antecedents, but they were side by side in the New Thought ideas. That's why so many people came to Unity, or came to Science of Mind, or came to Christian Science, because they had read a Norman Vincent Peale, or a Napoleon Hill, or an Earl Nightingale, or whatever it may be. This was a time, the early part of last century, this was a time for explosion of consciousness. And look what's happened. In 100 years, we've made more progress than we have in the preceding, I can't tell you how many thousands. Look what consciousness did. But it also brought some unintended gifts, some unintended, rather, things that we don't want. For example, we've seen how social media can shrink the world and be destructive. We've seen the bullying that we hear about on social media. We've seen the ideas that my opinions are one that counts, yours doesn't, and we see people at each other's throats. Why? Because they made a decision not to coexist. When we do things in harmony with ourselves and with the principles of truth, our lives work. And if we could take this lesson into our world and really act like it, we can see things change. When Dr. Cady mentioned not only the bondage or liberty of your personal Egypt and your land overflowing with milk and honey, she also talked about the necessity of changing your thought, but the necessity of embodying what it is you want. Can you get a clear picture of what the use of this power and this spirit means to you? You know, there's certain things that you may have to give up. Some habits, some ideas of thinking, some things that you may have grown accustomed to, and they block you from your very best. I'm not a fan of using the word sin in a ecclesiastical attitude. I'm more like it's self-inflicted nonsense, S-I-N. Things that you do to yourself that block you from your highest good. Sin is a missing the mark. What sin are you doing to yourself? How are you tripping yourself? Think about this morning. Think about literally the way you talk to yourself. Think about what you're thinking about. And then Pentecost will come alive for us, not just as something that we celebrate that happened 2,000 years ago, but something that's a living, breathing reality every day. You're the authors of your life in great degree. Did you know that? And does that at all ever awe you? Do you ever feel sometimes scared by that? I know I did. At 18, I knew that regardless of my age, if my name went on that sales board, I could be hunting a new home. And it wasn't on that board for a while, but I kept at it. I just kept at it. And sometimes that's what you have to do in your spiritual life. You have to keep knocking. Keep knocking on that door. Keep affirming. Keep believing. Keep expecting. As the Reverend Jesse Jackson said, and I love this, keep hope alive. And I love these 4 letters about hope. The 4 letters. Holding on, praying expectantly. H-O-P-E. Hold on, pray expectantly, and believe that what you want can be yours. It doesn't have to be something earth-shattering, something where your name's in the papers and you're famous. It can be your own personal mountain that you overcame. And you took that Pentecost spirit that came 2,000 years ago and you affirmed something brand new about yourself, and you watched it come into fruition. You became the possessor of the most magical, wonderful gift of all, a new idea of who you are. And when you get that, that's the genesis, the health, happiness to new life, to the joy more abundant that's promised us. We can sit here in this room and we can say the Spirit is on us, and we can have all types of spiritual experiences. And then we can have somebody write about it and say this happened on May 28th at Unity of Burning. Or we can embody that right now, go out and touch our world and see what happens to it and ourselves in the process. Remember, the value of thought. The value of thought is what you put into it. Careless thoughts and careless actions come from careless thoughts still is casting a seed for perhaps things you don't want. You have to stand order to your mind. You have to realize that every thought that you think is creative on some level or another. And those that you keep watering, whether it be negative or positive, those seeds you keep watering are going to spring up and bear fruit. Do you want that? Do you really want? Are you thinking about what you're thinking about? Do you really want a harvest of what's predominantly in your mind right now? I know all of you, and I know that you're not holding on to grievous things about yourselves or other people. But it's so insidious. Negative thinking, the idea that I'm not good enough, strong enough, all whatever enough, can get inside you in such a way to block you and keep you from those things which are good. We are truly our own worst enemies, because we're the ones who cast the thoughts of our minds before the presence that always says, what will you have? And I hope this morning what you will have is new life. A new life that looks forward for the best, that you embody the spirit of Pentecost. I talk about the best a lot. What is your best? What is it that you envision? What is it that you would have, do, be, say, if you only could? It's that kind of thought that I want you to entertain this morning. Remember, good is the enemy of better, and better is the enemy of best, and best is the enemy of excellence. Think about it as a hierarchy of Rome. Good, better, best, excellent. As you walk upwards and honor yourself for having the fortitude and the strength to lay hold of the promises that were talked about at Pentecost, that were talked about throughout Scripture. Give yourself the blessing of encouragement for walking this path. It's not for sissies. It's not for cowards. It's not for those who are satisfied with the status quo. It is for those who will settle for nothing less than a wholesale transformation of their lives. And that's what we talk about here. That's what we celebrate here. That's the very, very lodestone of what we're about. Let that spirit of Pentecost come on you this morning. Cast off the idea of bondage to anything. If there's something you need to quit doing it. If there's something you need to start doing it. I don't need to know what it is. You know what it is, because you know how it makes you feel, and the things and the places and the events that are negative, you know better than anybody else. And you're the ones that can handle that. And the things that you love, the things that you want, the desires of your heart, you know what that is, and you know how to begin to go towards those things. I'm just here, hopefully, as a spark of reminder that it doesn't necessarily have to be the way it's always been, and that you can reach out for new life, and you can embody that spirit of Pentecost that we celebrate today, that you can do that right now with the decision that you make in your mind to reach out for that new life. God bless each and every one of you. Go out and embody the spirit of Pentecost, touch other people, and let them know what we're truly about. Thank you. get to give as we have received. You know, I talk about that a lot. But you know, when you give, you only give a lot of times what you value. And when you value something highly, sometimes it's hard to part with it. I know that. But I also know that when I've given with the attitude of gratitude and with expectancy, and somewhere or another has come back to me. I invite you this morning to give the best gift of which you're able. And those of you online, there is a PayPal button at the top of your page. As I told you, I've incorrectly stated it's been at the bottom. It is at the top. And I ask you to give the best gift of which you're able. And if you're not comfortable with online giving, you can send your gift to Unity of Bernie, P.O. Box 1973, Bernie, Texas 78006. That's Unity of Bernie, P.O. Box 1973, Bernie, Texas 78006. I thank you for being with us this morning. It's always a joy to see you all over. And if you get the chance and you're able, come join us. You ain't seen nothing yet until you've been in the house of love. All right, now, I ask for our usher, David, to come forward and take this offering as you give the best of which you're able.
Freely, freely, I have received. Freely, freely, I give. Divine love through me, this is all that I am, all that I give and receive. Divine love through me, this is all that I am, all that I give and receive.
Sometimes you'll have a new idea. I had an idea about this and it worked so well. And I don't mind changes. Sometimes you have to be okay with being wrong. Oh, that's hard to do. You think you're right, you have to admit you're wrong. I'm wrong, it's going to stay like this. All right, together we say, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I send it forth with my blessings and my love. God bless you.
Who can build a bridge between your heart and mine? Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time?
Together we stand and join hands. Come, be with us in the service. It's okay.
God has created.
Gosh, I lived there in the 70s and would go there, you know. I'd be there in the Presbyterian church because I was originally Presbyterian, and I like the ND a lot better. Good, I'm glad you had an experience.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, buddy.
Stranger.
Hi there.
I heard it, and I could feel it watching it daytime, because I was walking all day long every day. Anyway, what happened was that they will. I'll be
I was my dog, you know, and you can't get out of the window. And the other part, more than I understand the part of me that wants to walk over there. You hear it. People say, thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. Another wonderful day. You saw everybody heading out. Some folks are going on home. Some folks have other plans for the day. And some folks are going off to do the after-service lunch bunch get together. And you are also invited to attend those things with us, as well as our book studies, and especially those of you who can't make it out for Sunday morning service and the book study beforehand, know that there's a book study in the evening, often on the same book. And in the meantime, just know that we appreciate you stopping by and being with us today. Have a wonderful and most fulfilling week that is yours to ask for. It's yours.